Hey, everybody, welcome to the Engadget Podcast for the week of November the 11th. This particular Engadget Podcast is brought to you by Chevrolet, dedicated to pushing boundaries of automotive innovation to provide cleaner, more efficient, and better connected vehicles to enhance your driving experience. Chevrolet, find new roads. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Engadget Podcast. My name is Brian Heater. In a slightly altered setup, I'm enjoying this. What do you think, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need a slightly bigger table.
Yep.
But it's nice. I prefer sitting at a table than kind of lounging.
You're saying that you're not being facetious as you say that. You think we should be further away from each other?
Maybe. I need just a little bit more distance.
This is just it's just the right size for our three Apple.
Yeah.
Well, two Apples and one Samsung laptops. Mark's in the middle.
Works for me.
Yeah,
It's fine.
It's okay being in the middle of the setup because you have your nether region shielded.
Which is true. I just thought about that.
Which is always, that's all.
Not a bad thing,
That's all I can
suppose.
think about when I'm on camera. I'm enjoying the new setup. I did want to start the show off by talking about what we did this weekend. How was your weekend, guys?
Well, I did end up at a little show.
Mm-hmm. How little?
Turned out to be pretty big. But yeah, it was Expand this past weekend, which is it was awesome. It was like
Just quite literally expanded since the last time we did
It's
one.
huge.
yeah, it's bigger than the last one we did in San Francisco, and I mean thousands and thousands and thousands of people showed up over the course of a couple days, and we had dozens
Tens of thousands, I'd say,
possibly
or ten
hundreds,
of 10,000.
in the low. Let's just say
in
the
the low
low
tens of
five
thousands.
figures.
Yeah.
We'll keep it at that. I mean, I had a great time. I mean, saw tons of great stuff on the show floor, a lot of great stuff up on stage. We had the insert coin competition, which, I thought the one in San Francisco was good, but actually, I was, judging one of the judges this year, and at the New York
So
one.
you were
and
paying attention.
I was paying extra close attention, but it was actually, we had of all the companies that got up on stage, I mean, it was all great stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, any one of those could have gone, could have walked away with one of the, either the judge's choice or the people's choice.
And more importantly, any one of them could and still can actually be a very successful competition.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's
yeah.
they each one was already on its way to being
Yeah.
a successful project. It didn't necessarily need us giving them an award.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it's obviously, I'm sure they were very happy to get the money.
I think the difference between this time and last time is that since we already had it going, people saw it coming, so they were holding their projects off a little bit. I mean, we had,
Right.
I had 3 or 4 different companies tell me at the show that they were basically waiting for Monday, Tuesday to actually launch it. I know
I noticed that.
DIYer, for example,
Yep.
is,
Right.
which
They're
was
out.
far and away one of the best. It won the judges' choice.
One of the
You
judges'
guys
choice.
picked that
And
one.
it was actually a very difficult decision, but besides having a great name like DIY, because to play on DIY.
You think they figured out the name first, and then what can we do?
They were I came out of a agency, so I think they probably had some experience around branding and
Right. No, they've
naming
done a
and
lot of
things
other
like that.
products. And
Yeah.
Do you want to explain it?
Yeah. So the DIYer is with the idea that a 3D printer is great if you want to create sort of solid volumes, objects which have volume, but they wanted something that was just if you were creating something that was just a wireframe, or something that was an object which was made out of lines, and a 3D printer wasn't really a great way to solve that problem because they're not really designed to have the kind of structural integrity that you need.
Yeah. They're plastic.
It's basically like ABS.
Hollow plastic, usually.
Right.
And
exactly.
so they created a tool which can take a wire and basically take any line that you've drawn and fashion that wire into the shape, and then you can take those shapes and use them to make 3D objects and stuff like that. And I mean, obviously, at $2,500, it's not a consumer product exactly, but it did seem like the kind of thing where it was going to enable people to very quickly, if you were doing things by hand, whether you made jewelry or made objects or toys or clocks or any sort of thing.
I mean, they had some great examples of things like lampshades and chair legs.
I'll be surprised if within the next couple of years we don't see one of those in all these maker spaces. Also, I think and this actually went for a lot of the different projects we saw is they're making really cool platforms, but I don't think they have really even it's kind of tip of the iceberg as far as what people are actually going to use these for. There's got to be all sorts of potential for bending wires that we
I
never
think
even think
so.
about. I mean, art is definitely one of them. You can make some really cool
Yeah.
wire sculptures out of something like that.
And they've blown through their Kickstarter goal already.
Yep. They did. I think they did that in about a day. I think it was about 100K,
Yeah,
and I checked
yeah.
in a few hours into it, and they were up to like 66. The other big winner of the show was actually my personal favorite, the one I was pulling for, which is Grow Cubes, and that's
Yeah.
because it's something that I've been thinking a lot about living in, coming from California and living in New York City is growing indoors. I had a backyard before. I don't now, but even with a small backyard in New York City, you've only got a couple months out of the year when you can actually grow something. So this is the one thing I will say about it is I didn't realize how massive they were going to be until
it's
I
pretty
actually
big.
saw them in person.
Yeah.
They're probably maybe a little bit too large for my two bedroom apartment, but it's this giant plastic box with a wheel inside, and the wheel there's little. This is actually Mark Freundfelder, who co-hosted with me, is really excited about the hexagonal seed pods. So you can 3D print these seed pods, and you can actually use them to just even if you do gardening, you can use these to sprout seeds. And there's a little carousel inside that makes sure that they all get the equal amount of time at the light. They all get this nutrient-rich gas called aeroponics, which I think was the first time most of us had heard of that.
That was pretty impressive.
We're all very familiar with hydroponics at this point in our lives.
It uses 90% less water than traditional.
Yeah, uses no soil. So that's really cool. It's all of the information is crowdsourced as well. Yeah. So you can basically just kind of go online, download that information, and it will grow these things for you.
Yeah,
takes all the tough work. And as Ryan was really excited about was the possibility of hacking your plants. So
that's right.
That was something that would have never in a million years occurred to me.
Yeah.
Making sort of weird mutant plants out of that thing.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they'll end up doing a smaller version of it.
I would.
Because it is.
So.
I mean, it's like 4x4 by.
Yeah, I mean, they
8
describe this single
or something
cube
like
unit
that.
as sort of fitting in the space of a dishwasher.
Yeah.
So if you can fit a clothes washing machine or a dishwasher, you can fit one of these. But in an apartment, those things are.
I don't think this first generation is for me. I think it's for locally sourced like gardens, things like that. Networking a bunch of these together, and then classrooms. I mean, that's what they said, which really impressed me. I assume that anytime we give this money to somebody, they're going to be spending it to make like cool videos for their Kickstarter campaign, but they were actually going to spend this money to make sure that a set of boxes made its way into classrooms, which is really cool. Which again, like if you're in an inner city school, for example, you don't really have much of a chance to interact with produce.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Give kids the loves of veggies. I mean, obviously we can spend all day prattling on about the show. I mean, are there any other highlights you'd like to point to before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that we had some great speakers there. I think anybody who wants to see them, obviously we've got them archived on the site.
Yeah.
But I thought that pretty much every panel that we had and every individual speaker had really fascinating things to say. Obviously, we got great crowds for LeVar Burton and Reggie
having
Watts
having LeVar Burton talk about Google Glass was
man.
Yeah,
I
feel like we've had like decades of history leading up to that moment.
Even more than that, like, and this isn't something that, for obvious reasons, doesn't really come across on the site, but I mean, to me, the coolest part about expanding it, and maybe we can do a better job of chronicling this in the future. But a lot of the really cool stuff is actually happening backstage. It's these speakers from very different disciplines interacting back there. LeVar Burton is a really good example. So I also spoke to Timothy Jordan, who's the lead developer advocate for Google Glass. So he's the guy who goes out to South by Southwest and tells people why they need to develop for this platform. And he was sitting there on a couch, and LeVar Burton like walked up and had apparently this very visceral reaction. Partly because he's a celebrity, I assume, and and there was a chance that he was being taped. But they had a very fascinating conversation. Reggie Watts and Eric from Pebble had a nice little bro down backstage. Reggie's got like 6 or 7 Pebbles at home, so they had a nice talk there. Everybody got scanned. There's a nice scan of Spike Lee.
Oh, great.
He, not surprisingly, stood still for long enough to get that done. That was really cool. And speaking of gadgets, which obviously is the focus for a lot of people. A few product launches, I think far and away the most notable, though, which I just alluded to, is the Sense 3D scanner. So maybe about a month or two ago, we went to MakerBot and saw the cool digitizer that they have, which is just kind of like a lazy Susan. You could stick a small object in there. It'll give you a 360-degree scan. This really feels like the next step. I mean, it really feels like something that, it's kind of the missing link. This is the thing that we've been waiting for to really, I think, build up interest in 3D printers. Is a way of capturing all that information without having a lot of knowledge of, CAD or other modeling programs. It's a little, it looks like a staple gun is the best way I can describe it. It's like a tethered staple gun.
It's like a staple gun with a Kinect.
Yeah, with a Kinect camera on the end.
And inside of it.
You can walk around somebody doing a 360-degree scan. I've spent some time with it. I've been walking around scanning everything.
How much does it cost?
$400.
That's not bad.
No, not bad at all. It's a fraction.
Yeah.
It's like a sixth of the price of the replicator. It's incredibly easy to use. The software is really great. It does a good job. So I'm sure that we'll have a review of that in the not too distant future. So God, my voice I think is still a little strained from.
You were on stage a lot
from Expand this week, and I haven't fully recovered. So I'm going to move on to the Sony PlayStation 4 review by asking you guys whether or not you expect to have one of these in your respective homes in the next year or so.
Well. I should say the first thing I should say is I thought that Ben's review, because Ben Gilbert did the review for us. I thought his review was great. I think that is comprehensive, but he didn't, go on just for the sake of going on. I felt
there's a lot to talk.
There's a lot to talk about, but I felt like I got all the information that I really needed or wanted. Obviously. As someone who likes to play games, I'm predisposed towards. I have both the PS3 and the Xbox 360, and so it's not necessarily like an either or kind of thing for me. I'm not sure I'm actually gonna buy either the 1 or the 4 right now, mainly because I'm just at a place in my life where I don't have a lot of time for gaming, and so I'm trying not to buy things unless I think I'm gonna use them a lot. But I think that I feel pretty compelled. Buy this, and if I had the time for more gaming, I wouldn't have any reservations about buying the PlayStation 4. I don't think there's anything that says to me there's no red flags or anything that says you're not gonna if I'm a gamer, that I'm not gonna get my money's worth. I think given the I wouldn't buy this as okay, well, I'm gonna I care also a lot about the media capabilities, which are still a little limited right now. I would really buy it if I was very strongly interested in gaming. Now, maybe with the Xbox One, we see a slightly different story because of the integration that they're trying to have with cable boxes and services and things like that.
And they've always, Microsoft's always done a really good job with media services.
I use my Xbox for media instead of using other connected devices.
Do you think that that's the direction that we're moving in? Obviously they're both making a much bigger push on that side. Are we moving towards the devices? Are they attempting to move us towards devices where gaming is not necessarily secondary, but that the media capabilities are good enough for people to just pick these up as
I think Microsoft and Sony would certainly like that.
Yeah. Although it's certainly orders of magnitude more expensive than an Apple TV.
I remember when the PS3 first came out, people bought it just for the Blu-ray drive.
Yeah.
And people bought the PS2 for the DVD player.
Yeah.
But there's nothing here that's quite as and that was because the Blu-ray players at the time were priced about the same as the PlayStation.
Yeah, look, if this was 2014 or 2015,
we'll be soon enough.
Which it will be soon enough. But I'm saying if this was fall of 2014, it's conceivable that if the PS4 were coming out then, that there would be maybe a push around 4K and about this being a device for delivering 4K content.
That they were trying for that, but the stars.
I think it was too early.
Yeah.
But they did.
Because they're doing their own 4K service.
Yeah, they are, and they actually had that at Expand, and the demo of that was amazing. 4K, so I think that I think they learned their lesson from the PS3, which is that they tried to make the PS3 about Blu-ray, and it actually really hurt them because it raised the cost of the console. Yeah. It kind of made them pay this strategy tax where they, instead of trying to compete with Microsoft in terms of like gaming and online gaming services. They focused on Blu-ray as a differentiator, which the market didn't really care about that much at the time. I mean, a year later or 2 years later, it was a slightly different. But I think that again with the PS4, I wouldn't buy it because of I wouldn't buy it for its media capabilities. And I think at this point, people have. I mean, if anything, you probably have like 3 or 4 devices in your home which can stream Hulu and Netflix, right? You probably have like a TV which can do it, a game console from the last generation which can do it. You might have an Apple TV or a Chromecast or a Roku or whatever. So it's not like.
And I mean, even if you don't, $400 is a lot of money to ask for something.
That's what I'm saying. But I mean,
just for that.
But I'm not saying anyone would do it just for that. But I'm saying is like I think that the justification, like the motivation for buying it is really like 98% gaming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're not a big gamer, then I think it's hard to sort of get pushed over on this.
But I mean, the reason why it's in their best interest to eventually move away with that from that, and I suspect they're going to be doing more of a job in that in the next generation, is that all of these other devices that we have on our persons are doing such a good job at gaming, and will continue to push graphics and performance and things on that front. So it might not in the future make sense to buy a $400-500 box just to do gaming in your living room.
Well, I think that we've seen peak console, right? I don't think anybody, even Microsoft or Sony, thinks that they're going to sell more of this generation of console than they have of the last generation. I think. It's an industry which has changed, and mobile has really changed it. I don't think we're seeing that much of an impact from the Ouya's of the world yet. And I think the jury's still out on whether kind of those Android-based micro consoles are substitutional.
I mean, the first generation is just not great. There's no question about that, right?
But I'm saying the jury's still out. Like that might be something that has an impact. I don't think it has so far. I think that it's just a recognition that there are enough people who are passionate about gaming that they're going to spend $400 or $500 for a console and $40 to $65 for a game title, and that might not be a huge.
It's still a pretty big portion of the population.
It's not a huge market, and it might not be a growing market, but it's still enough that you can have something come out and have it be like Call of Duty, like the latest Call of Duty is like the most successful entertainment product of all time,
which I think qualifies as a
huge
market.
It's because the per unit cost is really high.
Yeah, I mean the gaming industry
and because
is still
a lot of people are buying them
in terms of revenue.
Yeah, it only has to be like if the cost per item is 6 times like an album or a movie ticket, they just have to have at least 1/6 of the audience.
But that's still, I mean, that's still a tremendous amount of people. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Still more people than any other.
That's why it's still worth having a console industry, because you can still make a lot of money. It's just like, I mean, to me, it's a bit like the luxury car market, right? It's like, obviously, like most people are not going to buy a luxury car, but you make so much more from selling a luxury car than you do from selling a regular car that like you're always going to have that. There's always going to be people.
So you don't see consoles as mass market products anymore.
I don't think
not
so.
as much as they were.
I don't think so.
They're still going to sell a ton of these.
They're still going to sell a ton,
but it's still a mass market product. But I agree that that it's shrinking, and part of that is, I mean, do you both have PS3s at home?
I just have an Xbox 360.
Okay. PS3, yeah.
I'm. Then neither of you can actually answer this question, but and which probably also speaks to the fact that you guys aren't getting PS4s. It wasn't that appealing to last generation, but
no, I have the PS3.
You do have PS3.
Yeah, PS3 and Xbox 360. Yeah.
Is there anything on here that's compelling enough? I mean, again, you're not gaming as much as you used to anyway. There's some cool new features. There's some cool new media features. They've done some interesting stuff with the remotes. The share button is really neat.
Yeah.
But aside from the fact that maybe they won't continue to make games for that older console forever, is there anything else that makes it worth upgrading?
Not necessarily for me right now. I think that, again, if we were a year out, and I think it was already a long generation between consoles, but if this was the 4K generation, where it was like, okay, all these consoles are going to output 4K, and I know there's some issues around HDMI standards and things like that being a little early, but if it was like, if Sony, and Microsoft, or just Sony had said, look, it's 4K gaming, you're a hardcore gamer, you can you're future-proofing your console, and it's going to be about 4K gaming, and it's going to be about this amazing, rich experience. I know there are a lot of challenges in doing 4K gaming with even the technology that we have right now. In terms of the processing power and things like that. But that would be really appealing to me, right? Which is like, it's just like the leap from SD to HD gaming, which we saw in the last generation, which was like, okay, the difference between the Xbox and the Xbox 360 or the PS2 and the PS3 was so there's such a marked difference in terms of the quality of the experience, because you went from SD to HD. I think the difference from HD to 4K maybe isn't quite as vast, but I think that it's still a selling point.
It is, but part of the breakdown there, and I'm sure Sony realized this, is just that not a lot of people have 4K sets.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a pretty small market.
That's my point. It's like I totally understand why they didn't do it.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
that's why Blu-ray makes more sense, right? Because you've got a Blu-ray in there, you've automatically got that technology.
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying, like, if I had something that would that would be something that would have compelled me to upgrade. This time
next year, do we see is it like an HD DVD slot? Do we see an add-on for the PlayStation? I mean, will it even be capable of that, or do they have to bring out an entirely different model with new processing hardware in order for it to actually do 4K games?
That's a good question. I mean, I know that they can upscale to 4K,
yeah.
but that's different than natively outputting the 4K pixels.
And I don't know how that actually applies to gaming either. The upscaling process.
Well, the upscaling is not necessarily, it doesn't have to do with the games. It doesn't have to do with the number of polygons being produced by the game. It has to do with the just like you can
resolution.
Well, just the resolution.
Right.
It's basically like a upscaling of the resolution in the to the TV.
So the over-under on that, at least.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
You don't think upscaling can happen?
Well,
upscaling,
not
upscaling can happen
4K.
now. But I think you're not going to get a native 4K gaming experience. I think that.
So we're going to have to wait another 8 years for something like that.
Well, I think that ends up being something where PC gaming starts to really differentiate. I mean, it could be that Steam ends up doing something.
Maybe it's for the post-console era.
Yeah, and that's. I mean, it's okay. I mean, I think it's not. You have to be realistic about about what you can deliver and what delivers the most benefit. In terms of, I mean, I'm sure they could have figured out like a $900 console that that did it, and then no one would buy it.
Yeah, how much of it coming out now was? Do you think just based on having a device to go head to head against the new Xbox device? I mean, that had they were probably pushing each other out the door at one point, I'd guess.
Well, they both took a long time, right? I mean, it's been the Xbox 360 came out in 2005, and the PS3 came out in 2006. So it's been, 8 and then 7 years respectively in this generation, which is a really long time if you look back at the history of video game consoles.
It's been getting longer and longer over the years.
Which is funny, because you think it actually would have gotten shorter and shorter.
But they did such a good job last time around. It really,
It's the one. It might be the one space where people actually have that patience. We're all like angry at our 1-year-old smartphones right now, but people are willing to wait 8 years to upgrade their systems.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny how
it's because of the content. I think is probably the main.
Well, and I think that it actually took a few years for developers to even get the hang of how to get the most out of the last generation consoles. So I think that's the other thing that sort of makes me has me not in so much of a rush, because when I think about the games that I really enjoyed on the last generation, I mean, they didn't come out in the first year. It really took.
And the launch games for Sony are pretty limited.
Yeah,
they're a handful, but nothing. I mean, if you like any of them, then you'll buy it. But they're still very limited set. I
mean, it's like I think Battlefield 4. I mean, great game, and I wouldn't mind playing that. But it's not like I feel like. I'm missing out right now by not doing that, and also I think it's kind of exciting to think about the fact that in 18 months there could be something that comes out that really blows our minds in terms of the capabilities of the. I mean, just think.
And I think it'll happen. It's inevitable.
But will it be a Sony only game?
Well, that's the thing. There are far fewer exclusives now than there were before.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the things where it's like I think that people can basically buy either console and be happy.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's
by either you mean the Ouya or the Wii U, right?
The Ouya or the Game Stick.
Yeah.
Wait, what are we talking about?
We are talking about the Moto G. We're moving from one end of the price spectrum to another.
Yeah.
The Motog.
Yeah. Let's start with pricing. $179.
Amazing.
Yeah. No, I'm just amazed.
I mean, this is the device that kind of renders. Sorry to Foxy, but any of those Firefox phones, the fabled Ubuntu phone. I mean, any low cost proprietary operating system handset.
Sure.
I mean, this is really, and this is the first, at least in this generation, I think it's the first internationally available Motorola phone, unlocked at least.
I don't know.
I
Depends on
think
how
it's the
you're.
first,
I don't know how you're
but,
qualifying that, but
Yeah, this is their first. This is their first international device. Since
Really?
since it became part of Google.
Wow.
Hard to believe.
I thought they would have done something since then, but I mean, what I like about this is that, look, we've been hearing about how Android pushing down the price of handsets, and I think like the latest data from IDC was saying that the average selling price of an Android handset is like around like $300 and something now, globally.
Yeah.
So obviously, like the prices, and I don't mean the subsidized price. I mean like the unsubsidized price. So there's been a lot of downward price pressure, but a lot of that has been. Like the majority of that has been like really crappy phones. Now we have seen, I think, a handful of like OEMs in China which are putting out like great devices for in the like the $300 to $400 range, like Xiaomi and Meizu and Oppo and a few others. I think that what's interesting is Motorola coming out with a phone which hits that price point. Obviously, it's not the most amazing specs,
Sure,
but I think that it's not, you're not going to get that like that compromised experience.
I think a 1.2 quad core, 2 gigahertz quad core processor is probably going to be more than enough than just about anybody's.
Well, and it's not a MediaTek processor.
A year ago, you would have paid this for an on-contract phone.
Yeah.
You'd have been stuck paying this as an on-contract price.
Yeah. Is this? It seems to be a device mostly targeted towards international market where people are actively buying stuff off contract. I don't think it's probably going to be a huge hit now because I think people are so used to buying things on contract right now. I mean, unless
the economics are just.
Unless all of these carrier pushes actually gain some traction. I haven't seen any numbers, but the T-Mobile and everybody else's initiatives on that front. Certainly, a year from now, I could see this being a much more successful phone in the United States.
Well, I think that the carrier subsidy model kind of skews the way that people perceive the price because, even if they sell it for free, which they could do very easily, right? It's still going to be like this or a $99 iPhone 5C for a lot of people. I think that, you do occasionally see sometimes where there'll be a negative price for the phone. I mean, you could see it being, okay, the Moto G's subsidized price on a U.S. carrier is negative $100 or something.
Like you will walk out of the store.
We'll give you $100.
Yeah, that would be a great promotion. Here's a $100 bill. Here's a Moto G.
I've seen it before. I've seen Amazon do it where it's like negative $49 or negative $99 for the phone. I mean, I haven't heard about that happening, but it's certainly conceivable.
Yeah.
I don't know how else you convey the value.
Yeah, it's gonna take people a long time to get out of the mindset because you see one number and you don't really process all the information.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating how we'll look at this and say, wow, that's a great price, and we even looked at the Nexus 5 and said the same thing, and it's $350, but for people who are so used to sort of the on contract model, you look at that and say, well, $179, I can get an iPhone 5S, and that's $199. But of course, they're apples and oranges.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. I mean, I think internationally where there's less subsidies, it's going to. I think it will probably do pretty well. Mm-hmm. I think of it as like, if like my wife like breaks her phone and we need to replace it, like I probably would just buy this for her because she'd be happy with it, and it's $180 and. It's going to do like everything that she wants. And so I almost think of it as like a, before.
Plan B.
Well, but you know what I would have bought instead? It would have been a Nexus, right?
Yeah.
So this is sort of like, it's a great sort of way to get a quality Android phone for not very much money.
You don't have a bunch of phones. You can give it to your wife if she breaks one of them.
Don't tell her that. She doesn't need to know.
I noticed you said my wife when you said that, not my Plan B phone. Although you expressed some interest in this. You like the different backs.
And I actually, I love. I mean, I know it's like a slightly thicker phone, so this is probably why they were able to do the swappable backs. But I do think it's actually an interesting advantage over the X that the user can swap the back for and experiment with different ones. Because I use the Moto X, which I actually really like. I sent my Nexus 5 back. I returned it. Update from last week, I guess. But it would be. I mean, if the Moto X had like swappable backs, like I would have bought like a half dozen of them by now. to change, just to match my clothing.
Just give them out to
Or just to give them out to people.
Presents.
Yeah. I'll autograph them. Yeah. Just a side note on the Nexus 5, battery life. It was great for like the first day and a half, a couple days, and then I had like 4 days where it was horrible, and I decided I'm done.
I'd be interested to see the battery run on this, because that's certainly something that Motorola's been doing really right over the last couple of years.
And it doesn't have LTE, which is
the HSPA Plus
battery drain, and
trade-offs. Life is full of trade-offs, Mark. The Engadget Podcast is not full of trade-offs, however. That's because it's brought to you by Chevrolet, dedicated to pushing the boundaries of automotive innovation to provide cleaner, more efficient, and better connected vehicles to enhance your driving experience. Chevrolet, find new roads. I got a couple of small things that I wanted to address. Again, not a super busy week for news, obviously, because everybody's still talking about Expand. But I did want to mention the Snapchat story that came out over the past day or two, that Facebook reportedly offered $3 billion to Snapchat. I mean, what? I can't even.
Yep.
I mean, first of all, it wasn't in Bitcoin, which is actually kind of probably the most surprising.
I think
part
the
of
offer
story.
disappeared after 10 seconds. I think that's the problem. Okay, so there's a number, like some stats that I actually I saw these before I heard about this acquisition offer, but it does offer some context, which is okay. So the number of photos that are shared per day on Instagram, about 55 million, on Facebook, 350 million, on Snapchat, 350 million.
Mm-hmm.
So more photos are shared on Snapchat per day than on Instagram. Now, they're not the same service. Obviously, people will go and have a conversation where they share a bunch of photos back and forth, so that it explains the volume. But the user growth has been phenomenal, and the user engagement's really high. And I'm not saying it's worth $3 billion, because I actually think one of the things is that a company like, at this stage, a company that's pre-revenue, it's worth whatever people will buy it for or invest money in it for. So that, there's no objective way to measure value.
But Facebook is getting older. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's aging itself out, but kids aren't nearly as interested in it.
Exactly. Snapchat is a huge strategic problem for them, and I think that when they bought Instagram, I think they thought we solved that problem, right?
Yeah. But they can't buy Twitter.
No.
And they can't buy WhatsApp. WhatsApp is actually huge. WhatsApp is 350 million monthly active users. And that's where kids are moving. They're moving it to WhatsApp or to Kik or like a variety of these different messaging services. And they're doing it because, Facebook, they know that Facebook is going to sell them out, right? Facebook is not on their side. And that's why they use Snapchat. So I think that Snapchat could turn out to be worth a lot more, could turn out to be worth a lot less.
Assuming the feds don't shut it down anytime in the near future. Which seems like a pretty real possibility.
And when you're a public company like Facebook, $3 billion isn't $3 billion.
Yeah, you just issue some stock.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's pretty clear what Facebook would have done had they bought Snapchat. They would have integrated the functionality, I think, into Facebook itself, and the service. I think Snapchat as a service would have gone away, and all these kids probably would have moved on to whatever the next thing was. I mean, it seems like it would have just been part of the larger, the disappearing messages would have been part of the larger Facebook service.
Yeah. And remember, I mean, Facebook did introduce Poke, which was their response to Snapchat, which went nowhere. And
I don't even remember.
That's right.
Yeah. But look, we've seen this, right?
Forgot.
I mean, look at YouTube. There was Google Video, which they had. It was a competitor with YouTube. I think it actually may have predated YouTube in the market. Didn't go anywhere. And Google said, we have to buy the thing that actually has the growth and is going to be successful. And YouTube turned out to be, they spent $500 million. People thought that was insane. People thought that was stupid. YouTube didn't make any money and had all these legal liabilities. Or was it more than 500? No, it was 1.6 billion. It was MySpace that was 500 million. And so, I mean, I think that on some level, Snapchat is a huge threat to them. Yeah. But by the same token, there's always going to be another company that comes up that threatens them. And it's like, you can't buy them all.
I mean, you can buy a lot of them though.
But you
Google
can't
has shown
buy-
that
you
you can buy a
definitely
lot
But
of
you can't
That's
buy
true.
all of them.
Yeah.
That's the
You
problem.
can buy
No.
enough to keep yourself relevant, I think, at least for a while.
Well,
Maybe.
and you sort of have
Any
no
indication.
choice. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're Facebook, you have no choice.
You just have to make those
Yeah.
strategic purchases.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah.
you can also take the Microsoft approach and buy things, well after their popularity is arced.
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying it's like one of the it shows I think sort of the weakness of Facebook, but I also think that if I think that Snapchat, what I would take the offer, right? I mean, I think if you're 20, these guys are 23 years old.
Sure.
Yeah, for
I
$3
would,
billion.
for $3 billion, like I wouldn't roll the dice like that. I mean, you could argue that the Instagram guys made a mistake, right? Because Instagram was 30 million users, I think, when they got bought by Facebook, and now it's like 150 million or something
They
like
sold,
that.
too, they sold too
They sold
soon.
too early, right?
What's the saying? You can't take it with you. I mean, there's
But I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
it's that's why I would sell, because it's
Yeah.
like, maybe you're leaving money on the table, but at some point, like, unless you're like, and it's hard for me to imagine someone being like, yeah, Snapchat's what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like, I want to be this is like, I want to do this for 50 years.
Well, the flip
which I
side
could
of that-
imagine Zuckerberg,
Yeah,
but
the
not
flip-
selling, because he's like, you know what, like, what else am I going to do?
It's not even necessarily this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, as so much as this is something. I don't know if integrity is the right word when we're referring to Snapchat, but that I don't want to lose some of that. That I know, again, that if I sell to a company like Facebook's going to do whatever they want with it, and Snapchat is not going to continue to exist the way it did. So if they really believe in the product, we'll still take the $3 billion, granted. But I guess there is an argument to be made for waiting for a service that will that will do what you want with it. That will continue in with the vision of the site. And I don't think that Snapchat is going to have any lack of suitors, certainly moving ahead. They might not offer as much as Facebook did, but there's a lot of people chomping at the bit
it's
to
going to
buy
be pretty
them.
hard for them to really make money without making some of those kinds of compromises.
Yeah, they're gonna have, but I mean, given the level of usage and the engagement of those users, I mean, they can make money. I have no doubt that they can figure out a way to make money.
But they can't make Facebook money at this point, probably.
No.
What do you mean, like in terms of
In terms of the money that would come in
By basically
if
selling your
Facebook had
users
purchased
to
them.
well, yeah, but you have to differentiate between an acquisition and revenue. The money
I mean,
that
even
can come-
still, it took Facebook a while to get to where they are, and I don't
Same thing with
don't
Twitter,
see
right? I mean,
yeah, but call me out on this in a couple of years. There's a good chance I'll be wrong on this, but I don't see a service like Snapchat necessarily having that staying power, because I think they're going to age out even more quickly than Facebook did. I think those kids are going to leave pretty soon.
It's possible, and I think if you're for the investors and for the founders, it's we're growing really fast, and we can. They probably felt like we can safely turn down this offer.
Yeah.
And we can probably get another one in the next year, and then make it, and then really worry about it then, without risking everything falling apart. It's not like they turn down this offer and then they're never going to get another offer.
No,
ever again
and
from
then
anybody.
they still have plenty of investor
They
interest.
will
It's
get
not like,
again. They absolutely will. I mean, they could get bought tomorrow by somebody who's on Facebook if they wanted to. But I don't know how long you can draw that out for. I don't know how much longer this growth is.
Look, a good example is Foursquare, right?
Yeah.
Foursquare got a $100 million offer from Yahoo really early on. They turned it down. I mean, Foursquare is clearly worth more than that now, but it's not really growing as fast, and is not on the trajectory to becoming $1 billion company. So there was a point after that where they would have gotten more than $100 million, which they probably would have been able to. They probably should have taken. So it's like it was right to turn down the Yahoo offer, but it was probably a mistake to turn down like whatever offer came at like the $250 or $300 million level.
Yeah.
So I think it might be the same thing with Snapchat, where it's like maybe it was right to turn down $3 billion. I'm wrong, right to turn down $3 billion, but it would be wrong to turn down $4 billion.
Man,
Right.
those numbers are so much larger.
You know what though?
Yeah,
if you're
it
an
is.
if you're an investor,
Yeah.
those numbers actually are really big. Like, they turn out to be a big deal.
Yeah. I'm sure they do. I just can't. I can't process I can't process how long it would possibly take for. I mean, how long Snapchat would have to continue to be an incredibly relevant service in order to actually make somewhere near what their valuation is. At this point.
Someone ran the numbers just based on Twitter's market cap and revenue numbers.
Yeah, their
and
IPO was huge.
Their IPO is huge. It's other people feel there's a lot of promise in the service. So I think that Snapchat. I mean, I think the thing is, like, Snapchat has a lot of users, and a lot of users spend a lot of time.
Sure.
And I think that it's totally feasible that they could back into that valuation. I think it's a little aggressive, but I think so is Twitter.
Again, it's going to take a while, though.
Sure.
Even with that kind of engagement.
Absolutely. But I think that it's one of those things where if I think that it feels like a let's roll the dice kind of moment.
But I would think that part of the reason why Twitter's evaluation was where it was because they've proven that they can serve ads. They've proven that
they were able to raise money at huge valuations even before they had the revenue potential. They'd really proven their revenue.
Yeah, when
potential.
people were completely.
And Twitter became just a huge mainstream force where everybody is on Twitter, and Snapchat is not that.
Well, yeah, I mean it's. Again, this is coming from an old guy who doesn't have a ton of familiarity with it, but it seems to be a little too anonymous to be able to have those kind of giant celebrity superstar users the way that Twitter does. I mean, that's also one thing that one of many things that Twitter has over Facebook is the ability to have somebody with millions of followers, somebody who's going to bring more people.
Yeah.
With Facebook, it's more, again, all relative, but more of kind of a private thing. Where people are becoming more and more careful with what information they're sharing on the service. We hinted at this a little bit earlier in the show, but I did want to talk a little bit. I want to go back to the Mozilla handset. I mean, I don't think it's surprising to anybody who knows anything about this phone that we're not going to be seeing it in the U.S. Mark.
Yeah, the ZT. I think that it's way too low end, and the Moto G makes it even less attractive. I think I know you can buy it on eBay, and it's interesting, and I can certainly see it a very, very small niche of sort of people who are just curious about it, but I can't blame them for not wanting to sell it in a serious way in the U.S. It's just
I don't know why you would pick one over an Android phone.
No.
I'm not sure what the advantage is.
Just having, like Mark said, something different.
No, yeah, but I get that
but
part.
That's
why I wanted the
developers
Ubuntu phone.
Or if you just really love Firefox, I guess
No. And we haven't talked about the sailfish. Is it Yola? Jola?
Yeah.
We decided how it's pronounced.
Would you like to do the honors?
I don't know. But I guess those are starting to go on. Those are going to go on sale in Finland soon. I mean, it's just a very small run. But I thought the interesting thing about how they are going to have an Android app store, just not Google's. They're going to have Yandex's app store in there.
Sure, it's not unprecedented.
Yeah, and we've heard these rumors about now BlackBerry 10 is going to support. Was it that they're going to actually be able to support Android apps without side loading?
Yeah. Which they've supported Android apps in some form or another for a while now.
Yeah, but I think somebody showed a screenshot of it, the Play Store on it. So I mean, it's just interesting how it shows sort of the flexible of the Android JVM, but also it's interesting to think about. If there are things that you like about Android, right, like certain apps and things, but you want a different kind of experience, and that you want something that goes beyond what you can get out of a launcher.
Yeah,
I'm not sure there's much a compelling argument.
That. especially since we've seen so many skins that offer up such a different experience from vanilla Android. That again, a fully different operating system.
For the average consumer, it's not really a sell. I think there's a niche market.
The non-average consumer, granted, it could come out and it could be an incredibly compelling experience. I guess we can hold off all judgments until then. But
I think it certainly gets around the ecosystem issues.
The App Store issues.
The App Store issues, yeah.
And then lastly. I did want to talk about the Yoda phone, just because it's nice to talk about the Yoda phone from time to time.
Is it Yoda or Yada?
I've been saying Yoda.
I've been saying Yoda, but
Yeah.
Because I thought yada yada yada.
Oh, I've been thinking the old
Yota.
Dagobah Jedi Master. But and the reason why I come back from this time to time is because there's still a compelling argument to be made that you can still do something fairly interesting in the
We should
the
tell people what
smartphone
it
space.
is.
It is a handset that has e-ink on one side.
Yeah.
So all the benefits of e-ink. It's not going to eat up your battery. Looks better out in daylight. I mean, this is really to me. It's kind of like having a Pebble watch built onto your phone.
It's
right?
an interesting idea.
I love this idea. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for those. I mean, there was a Chinese OEM that was showing an Android-powered phone that was just had an e-ink display, which I know is pushing it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just kind of love the
I think
idea.
the battery
of-
life would be
the
like
battery life
something
would be
like
great.
that. Yeah.
As somebody who's browsed the web on lots of e-ink devices,
I'm saying you don't use it for
Yeah.
that. You
Yeah.
look at you kind of limit your use. You have to restrict your police your usage in a way that takes advantage of what's good with the e-ink display. I mean, obviously the Yoda phone splits the difference.
yeah. If there were more,
It has a screen on each side.
I do think that, and Pebble actually, granted, might be helping this along, but I think if there were more companies doing more innovative things with ink, I think that they would have a lot more money for R&D, and I think they'd be doing a lot more to push it forward. And again, the Pebble is a pretty successful product. If we see more companies creating smartwatches with that technology, then absolutely in a couple of years we could see ink. People doing really great things on e-ink.
Yeah.
At the moment, though, if you've ever used a browser on a Kindle,
Yeah,
you know
no,
what an incredibly awful experience that is.
I've not done that in a long time with good reasons.
It's like having an etch-a-sketch on the
Dude,
back of your
once in
phone.
desperation, I did check Gmail in the browser.
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah.
It's getting better. I mean, the resolution, the last generation of ink displays, the resolution is, I'm not gonna say much better, but it's
It's
a
better.
fair deal
The
sharper.
responsiveness is better.
The refreshing is better. So
Yeah.
they've taken on the new Nook and the new Kobo don't have the full refresh. It still really sucks at doing images, but again, I mean, if this is just something that you're going to pull out of your pocket really quickly, look at it. Clock functionality is a good example of this. I mean, how many times do you pull out your phone on a daily basis just to check the time?
Or for Pocket, you're reading Pocket.
Yeah.
No,
you're reading
and I mean for
Kindle
texting,
apps,
it's
yeah.
it's just
For messages, for things that it's for things that you would want to do on your Pebble.
No, and
except it's a much larger display.
right, and to have a cell phone that you don't have to charge constantly.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is just we've got this whole other side. We've spent a lot of time improving screen resolution. Screen resolution is pretty much about as good as you're gonna want it on your handset at this point. So we've got a full new clean slate on this device. What can we do with it? Pretty compelling. Again, pretty compelling argument that I think that there's still something to be done in the smartphone space.
No, I mean, they're doing something different. I certainly would be, interested in playing with one, giving it some time. I also just sort of generally love I love the size of the Kindle, of the Paperwhite, and so I mean, if I had something, I mean, I'm not talking about the Yoda phone now, but it's just actually a device that was that size and weight would be great. To be able to have the extra functionality.
A Kindle Paperwhite,
But with phone.
Or maybe not phone, but if it had tablet functionality or something like that. Just to be able to do a little bit more with it, because
So
I
if
think
it had an Android type device and 3G or 4G.
I think that you could make the case that there are enough apps which are good enough on given the refresh rate and limitations of e-ink, like Pocket, various things,
which is
like a
on e-readers.
like a passbook type app for plane tickets and movie tickets and things like that.
I just don't. I agree with you on Pocket, and I think that's maybe the most compelling thing that the current Kobo has going for it. But all of these other things, I mean, okay, the screen's is going to be bigger than you're going to get on your smartphone, but everything else you're going to be losing a lot of functionality on, and you're not going to just not take your smartphone with you. So I just
No, I guess I'm just saying it'd be nice to see that baked into
Sure.
a future Paperwhite to have like a little bit of flexibility of like what you could, a little bit of extensibility, I guess.
I wouldn't be shocked. I would be shocked. They're gonna be making a much larger push towards social with Goodreads functionality on there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit. more
that's all I'm saying. It's like
functionality
I like the idea of some of those boundaries being blurred.
Yep. My voice is on the way out, so I'm going to tell you one last time that the sponsor for today's show and the sponsor for Engadget Expand is Chevrolet. You can find them over at Chevrolet.com. And with them, you can find new roads. Peter Rojas, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Peter Rojas at Twitter. Mark Purton Twitter. I'm Beheater at Twitter. I'm not going to do questions today for obvious horsey reasons, but we will be back same time next week with another episode of the Engadget Podcast.